And welcome to today's webinar. We sure want to thank you for joining us. And I just want to give a few housekeeping messages for our attendees. We're recording this webinar, and I will post the recording on our www.careertech.org website, hopefully within the next 24 hours. If questions at all during the broadcast, please enter them in the chat box. Direct those to me, and we will be answering questions after both presenters have presented. And that, if you have any audio issues, you should be listening to the broadcast over your computer. But if you do have audio issues, please contact Krista Hughes, our Cisco WebEx host. And thanks Cisco for their support in using the platform for our broadcast today. And thank you for having Krista Hughes available as our technician. At point, I'd like to turn the broadcast over to Dean Folkers, who will be leading our session.
Well, greetings and good afternoon or good morning, everyone. It's a pleasure to have the opportunity to be with you this afternoon. And I'm showing you an exciting project that has been in place with the National Association of Career Technical Education Consortium and achieve press and the activity of this. We're going to talk here today really about the connection of the core state standards, specifically math, but we kind of morphed it in as we evolved the pilot project to knowledge and skill statements that were associated with the career clusters. So today we're going to hear from three of us, actually. Role at the State Association is as the Deputy Executive Director. We'll be hearing from Mark Williams, who is the State Director of CTE in Illinois and was involved with one of the pilot projects of the connections between CTE and the Common Core State Standards. We'll also be hearing, in fact, a significant portion of this will be around the actual protocol and the process that was used as a part of this pilot process. Teresa Matthews was achieved, and so we have a total experience today that will that we continue to move forward on. This webinar is actually connected to a publication series that we provide through a variety of topics, some issue briefs that are created. And for the issue brief that specifically describes this project, it is released today. It is available on our website at careertech.org. In particular, issue brief was entitled Achieving State CTE Directors in the Common Core Standards and Career Technical Education. There's also a list of all of our previous issue briefs available on our website. So primarily the purpose of today is to provide just a bit of background on the process and how this whole pilot project experience got started. We'll dig into the protocol a little bit and discuss kind of what this project is about and what we attempted to achieve. We'll hear from the state perspective and how this experience had manifested other initiatives and activities. And then we'll demonstrate some of the emerging results and then open it up for some questions and answers as a part of this experience. So background, Chief and the state directors have been working collaboratively for a number of years on different projects, but over the past year, specifically identifying opportunities for ways that CTE can support the implementation of the Common Core State Standards and be connected to the work of the Next Generation Science Standards, and a number of just really neat kind of synergistic opportunities around the notion of college and career readiness, and helping to assist the CTE environment in supporting implementation the Common Core State Standards. The Common State Standards, as I'm thinking most all of you are aware, are in process of being implemented in the states. 46 states have adopted them as their state standards, and so work continues in the states. You may or may not be aware that the career clusters framework, which is made of 16 career clusters, has a set of knowledge and skills statements that have been evolved and developed over years by the states, and have now sort of reached this point of the latest revision of the knowledge and skills statements has occurred. But they kind of serve as a frame of standards or expectations of what students should know and be able to do in the 16 career cluster and assigned pathway areas. We were thinking about what is it that we could do to help get opportunities for connecting the Common Core State Standards and CTE, and came up with something that would help demonstrate how this can be done, how this opportunity can be created, and started a pilot project. And that pilot project really was about building from some work that Achieve had been working on, and Teresa will share with you a little bit more about where some of the protocol work arrived from. But ultimately, we could advance some states that had volunteered and were connected and doing some work around integrating the Common Core State Standards in math and CTE. We started our first pilot in Illinois, and we focused and targeted in on the design pre-construction pathway as a part of that particular process. We followed up with an experience in Nebraska where we focused on two pathways, one in agribusiness and one in the food processing pathway. And recently we finished up an opportunity in New Jersey in the health science diagnostic pathway that kind of trended outside of the diagnostic pathway in some of the activities. But ultimately, the goal was to experience the protocol and bring together teachers at both secondary and post-secondary level, as well as industry experts, to assist in the creation of tasks. The instructional tasks, then, are ultimately the fruit of the labor, but and we'll hear as a part of this process, the little tasks that are developed are while robust and providing a demonstration of how the opportunities of connecting math and CTE expectations can work. The project itself was an enrichment, a personal development enrichment opportunity for the teachers that were involved, and created a better understanding of how and what can be done to implement the standards and expectations. Now let's get into what is the process and what are the kind of outcomes that are associated with that. And for that, I'm going to turn it over to Teresa.
Thank you, Dean, and welcome everybody. I will begin my portion of the presentation by giving you a brief background on the Common Core State Standards, specifically focusing in mathematics. Common Core State Standards were developed starting in the spring of 2009 by 48 states, 2 territories, and the District of Columbia. These states' standards were complete in June of 2010, and far have been adopted by 46 states and the District of Columbia. Currently, states are undergoing the process of implementation of these standards, and Achieve is integral in that work. A map of the 46 states that have adopted the Common Core State Standards at this time. Needs for Common Core State Standards. 5 main aspects that standards are intended to focus on. Preparation to stay college and career ready. And there's been a large push for college and career ready standards nationwide to bring American students up to international levels. It brings us to our next section of competition. The standards are internationally benchmarked, and common standards will help ensure that all students in America are globally competitive. And the main focus was equity. Students, depending on where they live, should be able to have an equal educational experience, and therefore these standards allow all students to have the same educational goals. Class standards are focused, coherent, and clear. Clear standards help students, parents, and teachers understand what is expected of them in the classroom, and collaboration. Foundation to work collaboratively across all states and districts, pooling resources, expertise, will allow for all students to gain a better education. So the state standards design, they are focused, clear, coherent, and rigorous. They are internally benchmarked. They're anchored in college and career readiness. So as used to guide critical decisions on the following areas: theme of particular content, so what is included in standards, both in EA and mathematics, the timing of when this content should be introduced and the progression of the content, and focus and coherence, the origin and the formatting, and determining emphasis on particular topics in the standards. Students includes looking from high-performing countries, leading states, and nationally regarded frameworks, resource literacy, text complexity, mathematics instruction, and quantitative literacy, and the works consulted and research-based included in the standards appendices. Advances in mathematics. What makes the Common Core State Standards in mathematics different from traditionally state-held mathematics standards? They focus on clear topics at each grade level and the connection with connections within across grades, including coherent progressions across grade levels. Balance of concepts, skills, and application. And the biggest changes is the inclusion of mathematical practices, which we'll go into in a moment. And these mathematical practices really feed into a lot of the career technical education. And we found that these have been a great bridge between mathematics and CTE, and they are college and career readiness. There are standards for mathematical practice, and these mathematical practices are habits of mind. They are students do, not necessarily the content, so how students go about solving a problem, problem solving, decision making. And these standards are, or the practices connect with the standards K-12 and can be integrated at any grade level. These grade level standards, K-8, the standards are organized grade by grade, and 9-12, they're organized by conceptual categories, which I will go into momentarily. So the 8 standards for mathematical practice: make problems and persevere in solving them, reason abstractly and quantitatively, construct arguments and critique the reasoning of others, mathematics, create tools strategically, and to precision, and make use of structure, and express regularity and repeated reasoning. So as you see, this is a different approach to mathematics education. This is not just content-based. This is really what a student does and how a student goes about solving a problem that is more content-based. The overview of the K-8 mathematics standards. K-8 provide the solid foundation. 6 and 8 go further into the conceptual categories of geometry, algebra, and probability and statistics. And the goal of the Common Core State Standards to bring students up to the level of high-performing nations is that a student upon completion of 7th grade should be prepared for algebra in 8th grade or beyond. And this is a big change and something that we're working on helping states with their implementation. School, the mathematics standards are organized by conceptual category, and these really call on students to apply these mathematical practices and looking at real-world issues and challenging their way of thinking. They require students to develop the depth of understanding and the ability to apply mathematics to novel situations, as college students and employees are regularly called to do. So they're really trying to get up to the level of college and career readiness by completion of the high school. As mathematical modeling, which I will address in a moment, and they identify mathematics that all students need in order to be considered college and career ready. High school mathematics standards. They're organized by conceptual categories, and there are 5 conceptual categories: number quantity, algebra, geometry, and statistics and probability. And each of these conceptual categories is broken further into domains and clusters, which organize the standards and then the standards themselves. One of the main aspects of the Common Core State Standards is modeling, and you will notice that modeling is not one of the 5 conceptual categories. Instead, it is integrated within all 5 of these categories. Any standard that includes modeling is denoted with the star symbol. If any of you have spent some time with the Common Core State Standards in mathematics, specifically high school standards, you will notice that there are standards indicated with a plus mark at the end of each standard, which means that are beyond the college and career readiness level, but standards are necessary for advanced mathematics courses. And so they are not required for all students. They are required for higher mathematics and may still be found in course expectations for all students. The 4 high school mathematics standards, you will see I've chosen the algebra overview just to show you what it looks like. This is the algebra conceptual category, and you can see that they're broken down into further domains or clusters, and within that are the actual standards. This is what a possible standard will look like. Creating equations is the domain, and you will see 1, 2, 3, and 4 are the standards themselves, and this is at the high school level, and this is in the algebra category. So brief background on the Common Core, and now I'll discuss the process that we used in combining, the Common Core mathematics, state standards in mathematics, with the career technical education. So of this process was to create high-quality instructional tasks, which could be used by either mathematics or CTE teachers for instructional use in the classroom as a way to integrate the Common Core State Standards and a specified CTE pathway. And it was important because there's always this need for truly integrated materials and courses, and this is challenging for teachers to come up with without working with their teachers in the specified areas. And so that was the idea of the project, is to gather mathematics teachers and CTE teachers and really let them work together on developing tasks that can be used in either classroom that are authentic in the CTE realm, but additionally hold to the Common Core State Standards in mathematics and really integrate the mathematics education. So I'll do a brief overview of the process that we have come in both Illinois, Nebraska, and New Jersey. First, we make sure that our group of teachers is made familiar with the Common Core State Standards in mathematics and the workshop expectations and the goals of the workshop and what we hope to accomplish. We hope to lead each workshop with, depending on the number of participants, about 6 to 8 tasks that are authentic in CTE and integrated with mathematics. And we introduce these tasks with a seed task. So this is a task that we have created at Achieve that is the CTE and the mathematics, and we present this to the larger group, and the group takes a turn at solving and working the task and editing the task to make sure it is clear and authentic. Once we went through this kind of seed task, taught the teacher out the process, which I'll go into in a moment. New tasks are created by these teachers with that focus on the authentic CTE, depending on the specified pathway we have chosen, and working in the mathematics content. We have approached this from both sides. We have created new tasks starting from a career technical idea, and we've also approached it starting from the mathematics side. So we want to include geometry. So let's build an authentic task around geometry. Completed these tasks in the workshop. We have them reviewed, validated for final feedback, and then the complete tasks will be shared broadly for state and district use in either a mathematics or a CTE classroom. Moving up to discussing what a task is and what is a high-quality instructional task. And I note here that a task is different from curriculum or for an entire unit. A task is something that it could be used in one classroom period. It could be used in a homework assignment. It could be used long-term, over a week or 2 weeks. So depending on the length and the rigor of the task depends on what it could be used for. But these are our quality and our tasks should include tasks should be based on and aligned with the standards, in our case the Common Core for mathematics and the correct CTE pathway. Should reflect strong instructional practices to prepare students for college and careers, knowledge and skills across the full performance continuum. They should support a culture of continuous improvements that can guide good instruction, list complex student demonstrations or applications, and this all students, including high and low achieving students and EL students and students with disabilities. These tasks can be manipulated to specific student population. So the step we followed for aligning each task to the Common Core and the CTE pathway. The first thing we did with the teachers in the workshop was to have them work the task thoroughly. And this gives them the insight into what mathematics is used in this task. Once they've completed solving the task, they can compare their work with their peers or with different colleagues in the area. We looked at the tasks to see the content and performances required. So we looked back at the mathematics Common Core and practices and saw what was required. And this is essential with step one to have the teachers really work the task so they get an idea of what mathematics is actually required. We then prepare the performances to the Common Core state standards for mathematics and the practices, and additionally to the CTE knowledge and skills statement. So the thing we do is rate for performance. And performance is, what is the student required to do? It is different than rating for content, which I will get into momentarily. The difference is, what is this doing to solve this task? Are they required to problem solve? Are they required, what is the student actually doing? And you rate these into these four categories. 3 is excellent, which means that the performances of the task are clearly consistent with the performances of the identified standard, including mathematics practices. A rating of 2, which means good. The rating is used for a partial match, which means that it might address part of the standard, not all of the standard. It might not have the student do the required level of thinking that the standard requires, but it's along the same lines. A rating of 1 is a weak rating. It's almost like a stretch. You can see how it's connected, but it is not necessarily a match. And a rating of 0 is no alignment. That we use to rate these tasks and come into the mathematical practices, standards, and the career and technical knowledge and skills statements. This purple, I hope it looks purple to you. This purple chart here is for the mathematical practices. You will see here that there is a space for the listing of practices under where it says Aligned Common Core State Standards Mathematical Practice Standards. That's where we would list the practice. Mathematical practices do not have a content rating because they were simply performances. There is no content in the mathematical practices. Here's where we have the performance rating. So here's where we would list the 3, 0. That's that I just showed you. And there's a space for alignment comments. And so here we could say, say we've rated something a 2. We can why we've rated that a 2. So it may align to most of the standard, but it is missing this section. Or we could improve this standard in the last column. We can improve the alignment by requiring students to do X, Y, and Z, which would help to improve the alignment to the shown practice. Our rates for content are similar to that of practices, although they're solely focused on the content of the standard. So we don't do a content rating for the mathematical practices, but we do a content rating for the Common Core State Standards in mathematics and for the knowledge and skills statements. Alignments work the same way, 3 and excellent being the highest alignment, going all the way down the line to 0 being no alignment. This shows the task alignment recording sheet for the Common Core State Standards. And so here we would have the aligned standards in the first column, the content rating, which I just discussed in the second column, the performance rating in the third column, and then the alignment comment. And we would do the same thing for the knowledge and skill statements. Has the same part as the standards. What does the alignment process tell us, and what are the next steps? Once we've completed a task, worked the task, we've come up with the solutions, and go through the alignment process for the practices, the standards, and the knowledge and skills statements, we look at the task and say, is this ready to go? Is this a quality task that's authentic to the career, technical education, knowledge and skills statements? Does it have high levels of rates for mathematical practices and the standards? And so if this is all true, then this task is ready to go. It's ready to be authenticated and validated and heading into the editorial process. We look at a task after the end of the workshop and we say, well, this task can be improved. We can maybe change some of the performances required in the actual task to improve the ratings with the standards and the practices, or maybe we need to make this task more authentic to the CTE realm. We'll have I can re-edit this task before it goes in for validation. I have a task that is poorly aligned with the Common Core State Standards, or it's not at the appropriate grade levels. Maybe it's a task that the mathematics is only aligned to 6th grade standards instead of high grade standards, or high standards. Then maybe we need to relook at this and determine, this isn't the right task. The next steps for this process. Now that we have done this in 3 states, we are trying to come up with a protocol that can be sent to all states so they can go through this process on their own. And so this tool would be for education administrators and districts used in replicating the validation of the Common Core State Standards to a task. And so we hope to have this tool complete in early summer 2012. Hopefully by the June workshop is the goal right now. And this tool will really help states to be able to create these tasks on their own. These integrated course materials for both mathematics and their career technical teachers. And if anyone is interested in looking at some of the tasks that were complete from the architecture workshop, they are available at the link right here. And I know we've put samples at the end of our presentation just to show you what a project work looks like and what a task really looks like. So along, I believe, to Mark now to talk about the state experience, and then we'll answer questions at the end.
Thanks to everyone for joining the webinar today. I'd like to give a little perspective from Illinois and from a policy standpoint about this work. We were very pleased to have the chance to work with the chief and the state directors on this particular work. Illinois was one of the many states that worked themselves into the Common Core State Standards. Like many of you other states, we joined the American Diploma Project, I think, in about the year 2008. We had been in the process of putting together content teams in mathematics and English language arts with teachers and administrators from both the secondary and the post-secondary systems. And we were comparing the Illinois state standards at that time with the marks that Steve had developed. Just in the midst of that, after we had put these teams together, initiative for Common Core State Standards really picked up a lot of steam. And so we then took that work, a little bit of a gap analysis, and then threw our resources into the implementation of the Common Core State Standards. And we had been working with the chief and had been working with our instructors and administrators up to that point. We found that the most valuable was that you place content, if that content is English language arts or mathematics, or the application of content, as in current tech ed fields, it transforms the conversation that takes place between instructors. Some of these instructors are talking to each other across departments for the first time. Sometimes instructors are talking to each other across institutions, from secondary, post-secondary for the first time. It's been our experience that typically that when you bring educators from different walks of life together, unless there is something concrete and practical in the center, such as content and its application, it's difficult to get them involved in excited, interested, engaging kind of conversation. It's easier to fall back upon the old silos of where they came from and what they're doing. And we heard that in a certain sense, content transcends institution. In speaking to some high school instructors, and I haven't been in Kansas all over the state, and so I just have certain anecdotes about working with instructors. What I discovered is that core established to some degree a language to talk about instruction that was not common across the other states. But teachers tell me that now they have a language to talk about content. They're living in institutions that don't really encourage conversation. And sort of what has been very important for them to implement the Common Core standards to institutions is to set up initial conversations where content becomes the center. And these tasks, for example, that took place in Illinois and was in early August of 2011, we brought together content teams, our architecture, drafting, and production teachers from secondary and post-secondary, together with mathematics teachers from secondary and post-secondary, some industry representatives. It was a 3-day process, and it was during the first day that we introduced them, and Dean and Kate from Achieve came, that first introduced them to the kind of conversation we were trying to structure over the next couple of days. In the first couple hours, I would have to say that there was real uneasiness about this strange kind of structured conversation, about the creation of these tasks, and almost as if, why are you bringing math and CTE teachers together? It did take long, once the actual tasks were in front of them for evaluation, for a different kind of conversation to take place. With them at the center, there was an energy that began to unleash as these teachers talked about content that they really liked, applications that sometimes math teachers had not foreseen, as career and tech ed teachers explained how the application worked. Not that career and tech ed teachers don't know math theory, and it's not that math teachers don't know application, but to put together in a very concrete conversation with another instructor that works in that realm, change the conversation. And so by the end of the third day of working on these tasks, participants were asking how it was that we could bring the same team together to work on another set of tasks. So we covered that this process of structuring a conversation between career and tech ed and content was not only just a way to come up with a product of tasks, but the process itself became a way of creating a conversation that needs to take place in our schools, in our institutions, where content becomes the center. Because to a certain degree, we understand from the career and tech ed world that career and tech ed is a content area. But sometimes we tend to forget that career and tech ed is also an instructional strategy, and a strategy that can be extremely effective in schools, and sometimes can be sometimes neglected by content area teachers. Just as the same way as math is taught within career and tech ed, sometimes there may not be enough intentionality on the part of the career and tech ed teachers to find out what that math content is and what strength that math content has to be used in other applications. And so ultimately we were so pleased with this that we've decided to set up our own structure through a project that we have. Illinois has been developing online a curriculum for tech ed as an expression of the application of the Common Core. And while it is not always easy to get teams of people together for 3 full days, we have been able to we're attempting to create modules by which we go out and bring teachers together for the same kind of significant conversation. And so a little bit of Illinois perspective on this particular project. We're very pleased with it, and we were so glad to find that putting content in the center of conversation allowed educators that normally did not communicate to reach a new level of collaboration and understanding. And I'm not sure who I'm supposed to pass off to.
That would be me. This is Dean Polker. So what we could do now is share with you just a brief sampling of kind of the results. And these results continue to kind of evolve as we've learned from each iteration of the experience. And as described what happened in Illinois, the same sort of synergy occurred in every state in a different way. And it provided a unique opportunity for the results of that work to be developed and continue to grow and be enhanced. So as part of that, this is a sort of what one of the tasks actually looks like. And this is kind of the front page of that task that was the resulting piece of the puzzle. It identifies the target Common Core state standards in math, the practices, the ELA literacy standards that were connected as part of that work. And ultimately, and then it also identifies the CTE knowledge and skills statements that are part of that in that front part. But ultimately, then the task is provided, and the task and its background information and the information that's associated with the work of what students should try to do as a part of this particular task. And then with the task, of course, we have the answers, at least the possible solutions that are associated with the particular task. And so it creates a resource tool for instructors to utilize and then also feel comfortable with the of what and how to solve the particular task that's being presented. At the end, well, actually, before there's this alignment piece, there's also a list of possible extensions. And what ultimately tried to happen, or what ultimately occurred, is we could frame the task into something that could be done in 1 or 2 class periods, in a sense, and provided an opportunity for extensions to be basically enhancements or further engagements of the particular task that was associated with it. And so those extensions then allowed for a deeper understanding, a more higher level application, a continuation of actually building something potentially in the CTE environment, depending upon what it may be. And so ultimately those lists of possible extensions are the brainstorms of the participants that were a part of the particular groups. And on these tasks are the actual alignment sheets, and this is kind of the cleaned up process or demonstration of the alignment sheets and the comments that were associated with it specifically for this particular task. It provides an opportunity for people to understand maybe the depth of the content and performance ratings and see the actual the alignment comments, some things that maybe were added or could be added to enhance that particular task and provide a little bit more of a deeper or richer experience. And at the math practice, the Common Core state standards were identified, as well as the knowledge and skill statements that were associated with particular task. And these tasks, and one sort of reasons why they've kind of developed and they've a little bit longer, is that we continue to go through a refinement process and really, quite honestly, a validation process. And so they've gone through a series of reviews and edits and audits will from subject experts in the math, in the English language arts literacy world, as well as in the subject matter expert discipline for the CTE area. And so ultimately, as they become available, there's a couple of places that we want to make sure that they're a resource and continue to be utilized. Certainly, they're to be available on the achieve.org and the careertech.org site. But we've also been able to post our first set of them of these from Illinois on the oercommons.org site. And those that have not had an opportunity to experience the Open Education Resource Commons site, it is basically a database of resources and tools and curriculum pieces that have been shared in this sort of open education environment. And so people have the opportunity to search by topic area, by subject area, by grade level, and identify particular tasks that may in fact benefit or useful for their particular work. And so ultimately, as we look to the sort of results of this, and Teresa mentioned that there was some work in being able to sort of put together a guide or manual on how to conduct one of these sessions, and it basically is going to be a resource that's intended to kind of help provide the protocol. Those and tools to help explain and conduct or facilitate the kind of engagement that allows for teachers to come together and do the synergy of creating tasks and identifying language and common language and working to develop opportunities for integrating and connecting the math and the CTE in both. And so the idea or the design ultimately is that these tasks can be used by both math teachers as well as CTE teachers in the context of their particular instructional experiences. I want to mention, because at the National Career Clusters Institute, which will be held in Washington, D.C. this year, anniversary of the Institute, having a pre-conference session. The State Directors and Achieve will be facilitating and basically sharing this manual, this document, the facilitation tool, and went through an afternoon-long experience working through actually kind of talking and experiencing a modified mini experience related to the workshop. So it is ultimately not to just hand the manual, but to provide an opportunity to experience what it's like, to engage in some conversations. And it's sort of like train the trainer concept, but ultimately that will be on June 17th in the afternoon. And if you'd like more details about how to get access or participate, sign up for that particular pre-conference workshop, the Institute career.org is where that information is located. So at this point, I think, is when we sort of open it up for questions. And so what I'm wondering is if you wouldn't mind sharing a few of the questions, and then we can kind of work through those as a fellow speakers from the different perspectives, depending upon what questions there are.
Certainly do that, Dean. Well, I must have received 10 questions alone just from attendees who wanted to know if they're able to access the PowerPoint later. And I always like to ask.
Probably your computer speaker.
An attendee needed to be muted, so I just did that. So
Okay,
apologize. I am assuming, unless I hear otherwise, from the speakers that we will be able to provide the PowerPoint to everyone. They're very keenly interested in the link that Teresa provided, and also in some of the text and content of the other slides. So let's move on to the other questions. First question is directed at Teresa, and it said, who conducted the pilots, workshops, etc.? And the question popped up in the chat box is like within 2 minutes after your conversation. Teresa, can you answer that question for us? Be sure to unmute your phone. Thanks.
The question is, who conducted the pilots in the state?
Yes, who conducted the pilots, who did the workshops? So it must be at the beginning of your conversation.
Sure. Well, within each state, we worked with a different group of people. The first Illinois workshop was 4 staff, I believe, no, 3 from Achieve. Dean always attended all of the workshops. And then depending, it is different state people, career, technical directors. It is math teachers, CTE teachers. We've had community college representatives. Getting an awful
So try muting yourself just a moment, see if that did anything. Okay. We'll give ourselves just a moment. Sorry for that. We've got some call-in users today, and I think we're just, if a person is calling in and they have their sound on their computer, that could be possibly what is going on with the speaker. So, again, I apologize. But, Teresa, are you there?
I'm here.
Okay.
So it was a different group in every state that we went to. But we found it really beneficial to have community college representatives at each conference to give us kind of the perspective from the higher education and how students are currently entering post-secondary education and how they are prepared. And so that kind of gave a different perspective, which was really helpful, I think, to high school and CTE teachers. So I don't know if that answers your question. I'm not sure if you're looking for particular names, staff, or of state representatives, but let me know if I can clarify any of it for you.
Excellent. And as the attendees can see on the screen, Teresa's email is listed there. If you have a more detailed question that you would like to share, thank you, Teresa, for offering to answer that question. We're going to move to the next question, which is, are 3 states that have been mentioned the only states fully participating in this? And I think it must be directed to Teresa again, perhaps?
Or I can take it.
Okay.
This is Dean. And what we did with this was really kind of targeted some pilot states to kind of test the protocol. And ultimately the goal is to provide an opportunity for the protocol to be available everywhere and be used at the district level, at the state level, and at the community college level, and in sort of capacity would make sense for the process itself to be used. And so these were the first 3 states that were engaged in the process. We are looking now sort of at this stage as the facilitator's guide becomes available here by June, that only every state will have an opportunity to conduct and be a participant in this process.
So revised knowledge and skills a part of today's release document?
It's a great question. We did not use the revised knowledge and skills as a part of the work. They were kind of one that weren't revised yet, was the biggest reason. The second reason is that ultimately, as we look to again, process, it's a great opportunity for, no matter what the standards are that you're looking to create and connect, part of the task development, you can utilize the version. In fact, Nebraska, as you saw, was one of those states that did not even adopt or has not adopted the Common State Standards. And so what we did in that particular situation is we not only crosswalked or at least identified the supporting standards as Common Core State Standards, but we also went through the process of identifying the Nebraska standards in mathematics that were a part of that particular process. So ultimately, the process itself utilizes that connection, and as we move into the common career technical core work and the review work of knowledge and skill statements, and that body that will be available in June, then that becomes an opportunity for us to use that set of resources as the connector or the aligning tool. It also provides an opportunity for states to use if they have state standards or if they have some curriculum-focused standards that they want to do it and connect to the process as well.
Excellent, Dean. There is another question. Was a statewide map that was shown, and one of the attendees said, has the state of Connecticut adopted the Common Core Standards? It was a little bit hard to tell on the map.
Yes, it has adopted.
Oh, thank you, Teresa. Okay,
No
the
problem.
next question.
I can just really quick, there are 4 states that have not yet adopted Common Core State Standards, and those are Alaska, Texas, Virginia, and Nebraska.
Okay. Those are states that have not adopted. Okay.
The state of Minnesota has only adopted in English language arts and not mathematics. So they're halfway.
Halfway there, okay. Thank you. Top is actually, we've got 2 directions going in this one. They're both rated in math and CTE. And I'll say both questions and see if they can be both. I'm doing a bit of shooting here. The question is up, and I'm trying to split it in 2 places. How is this work aligned with the work completed by the National Research Center on Math and CTE? And if a state has been using math and CTE, from the presenter's perspective, could the assignment process be approached? That's a pretty meaty question. Who'd like to tackle that one?
And there's sort of, you're right, a meaty question. There's 2 sort of directions that I'm going with this. One is the work of the National Research Center. For those that are not familiar with that, is phenomenal research that they've been doing over several years in identifying and providing professional development opportunities for math and CTE to connect the instructional strategies and actually research that kind of the proof, if you will, that context matters, and that at the core of it, it's the language piece. And so ultimately, it was sort of from that notion and this idea of the kind of CTE and the Common State Standards that would provide a supporting mechanism or an additional opportunity for conversations to occur within states around specifically the implementation of standards. And so it was not an outgrowth, but it kind of was connected tangentially and built from the base of research and experience that they had as a part of that. The second part of the question I'm trying to recall specifically was,
if a state has been using math in CTE, how, from the presenter's perspective, could this amendment process be approached?
Not sure I fully understand the question. The state's been working on and it has a significant sort of system of action and relationships already in the math and CTE. It builds from that and provides a unique opportunity to additional activity or an additional assistance to bring and connect to the work of the Common Core State Standards specifically.
Okay, so much, Dean. I'll move on to another question, and this is geared to our speakers. The question is, what did you find to be the most efficient process to get industry participation? And Mark, would you like to tackle that one?
Yeah, Mark from Illinois. Just word right off the cuff is if the person follow through on using their time well when they are invited to a meeting and they decide to attend, they're always very grateful for that. My experience has been that when business industry folks are invited to policy type meeting with educators where policy is discussed, don't have the same interest, and it seems as if nothing is really getting done, and I can really sort of appreciate that. If content is the center of the conversation, if there's at the center of the conversation between teachers, they'll be thrilled. So using their time well for me is one of the best advice I can get for bringing business and industry into conversation.
Thank you, Mark. Teresa, do you have anything you'd like to share, or Dean?
One thing I might add is action with postsecondary and local advisory connections or council members that have been a part of the experiences that we had in at least those three states also essential in identifying people that would be willing to participate. There were some business people that were there and had planned to be there for part of one day to kind of provide some expertise, and then ended up having an opportunity to come back because exactly what Mark described, in that it was the content, and it was about what specifically should be taught and what should be realistically taught as a part of the experience. And so that was the hook. But in the process of identifying those people, it typically was the connection to the post-secondary institutions, their business and industry partnership.
Excellent. Thank you so much. We're running out of time, and we've got several questions. So for those of you who do not get your question heard, I will send those to the presenters, and we will address those and get a response back to you as soon as possible. There is one more question, and it is, where can I find research on how the Common Core standards were internationally benchmarked?
I can tackle that question. That information can be found on the Common Core State Standards page, which is run by the National Governors Association. And there's also a link to that information off of the Achieve webpage. And I think I can post a link here in the chat box. Is that correct, Ramona?
Yes, you can send it out to all the attendees. That would be wonderful.
I will do that.
Okay. It looks like we are getting close to the end of our time, and like I said, if anyone did not get their question heard, we will definitely present those to the speakers and get those answered for you. And at this time, we're going to be wrapping up our webinar. I want to let folks know that we will have a post-event survey that will appear once you close out of the webinar. We'd appreciate that if people completed that. It gives us valuable feedback to let us know how we're doing for you and for content that you've come to expect from our organization. We'd like to thank Dean Folkers, Mark Williams, and Teresa Matthews for participating today. And we will be posting the recording of this webinar on the www.careertech.org website. And with that, I want to wish everyone a great afternoon.